appreciate the interchange. We want to continue that with our panelists tonight. And if you guys would come on over, and you're next in the hot seat. Most of you know our esteemed guest tonight. Taking the first seat is Randy Sexton of Assumption Co-op. Next to him is Jerry Rowe, Heritage Grain at Dalton City. And next to him is Kevin Walker at Legacy Grain at Assumption. We asked them tonight to come talk about cash grain options and opportunities. And I use the word options as kind of a generic, not as a specific marketing term. But we want to talk a little bit about several things that will help the communication between these guys and you folks. And I want to start off really with something that could be a major question for this year. For those of you who may be planting a certain type of soybean, it may be something that they don't want. And if they don't want it, you need to know it before you have it in the ground. Before you have it in the ground. Do they have it in the ground? Good. Okay. All right, we'll let you deal with it if you've got it in bags or boxes or something. But nevertheless, that's going to be a major issue, I think, in the countryside. Then let me start off with Randy. And are you anticipating getting some, or is this going to be a problem for the grain elevator industry here in Central Illinois?
You know, we really don't know till fall comes whether it's going to be a problem or not. I read an article today about it. Monsanto, in good faith last summer, felt that it would be approved by now by the EU. I think the EU is the main sticking point for it. And we're talking about Roundup Ready to Extend tubes, or Roundup Ready to Extend tube beans that also have bred, as I understand it, the ability for you to spray them with dicamba as well as Roundup. I think there's a wonderful product. I'm excited to see it, the potential for it. It scares the bejesus out of me for my company because if they are not approved and we cannot sell those kind of beans into either Decatur or the export markets, there isn't much else to do with soybeans. And I guess I'm not really scared about getting one load. Probably can lose that, but if we get the soybeans in the elevator in general contaminated, and I hate to use the word contaminated, but I don't know what it would mean, but it's not like there'd be a 10-cent discount. You're talking dollars, not dimes. I am sure if there gets to be dollars involved, there will be somebody and figure out some use for them. But I think we face a similar situation with the Durcade corn. And we've kind of skated by that, skated around it, and maybe we will with the soybeans. But what was it, 2 years ago, they stopped those ships out in the ocean going to China? Was it 2 winters ago, Harry?
I think so.
But we had been having non-approved GMO events, seed companies that put them out, people plant them, kind of got co-mingled into the chain, went up and down. Nobody was really, it was kind of a wink-wink deal. I think everybody knew they were there, but nobody was really enforcing it. And then I believe the Chinese had made some purchases and the price had gone down after they did, so they enforced it. And there were ships in the middle of the ocean and in port that they rejected. And because the companies had bought that corn and shipped it over there and hired the ships, and then they had it identified as being non-approved GMO events, I don't know, there were hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars lost. And so, when they're, I don't know how far out there, I don't know how aggressively the seed companies have been selling it, and I'm not an opponent of the seed companies. My daughter is a plant breeder and works for Monsanto in St. Louis, and before that she worked in Hawaii. I mean, I believe in the GMOs, but I don't want to be full of beans that I gave $10 for that are only worth $3. And that is the concern I have. I think the Duracate corn is also a potential. I mean, I think it was out there last year, and it seems like it kind of slipped through the cracks, or maybe nobody chose to enforce it, but I think we're playing with fire there, and I think in both situations. So I guess if you do plan to plant it, I would really, I just would encourage you as a decent human being to let the people know where you're going to try to merchandise it. And I'll try to help you as best I can. I just hope that's not, yeah.
I have a very interesting thing about being in the marketplace yet. I sell with pharmacy. If you are weak, will sell it to anybody unless you got to sign a paper that says you're going to feed it to
Good,
your farm.
good.
So I haven't heard. Terra is the one that calls it out. China years ago.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think they had more points than they needed.
The whole aspect of putting something into the marketplace, into a bulk commodity market, when it is not approved for all uses, is a major catastrophe to our industry. The Syngenta lawsuit will go on for years, and if I think anybody's going to really be the loser in the Syngenta lawsuit, it'll eventually come back to the farmers who planted it and didn't sell it properly. Don't think for a minute that they won't come back to the farmers that they sold it to at some point in time. Well, they were the ones that were ultimately responsible in not having it in the right spot. I would not suggest...
This has been going on since Roundup beans came out.
Well,
when Roundup came out in the 80s, it wasn't approved in Europe either.
Well, Roundup was not approved, but the process of getting approval today is much different than it was back then. We had no such thing as quick test strips and things like that back then, and I don't even know if there is a quick test strip for the Extend soybeans or not, but something tells me there will be at some point in time. But I don't think that the industry and the farmers themselves can handle it properly. I think that I don't want to get into a case where I have to probe every load of soybeans to find out what I got. We can't operate the elevator efficiently at that point. I think the Syngenta lawsuit's going to go on for years. I don't think it's going to be solved right away. The only people who are going to make money off of that's the damn lawyers. Okay? Yeah, that'll be the end result of that. It could very well be. Well, you mentioned Roundup beans, and I was on the Grain and Feed Board at the time in Illinois, and Roundup beans were not approved, and people were planting them, but we got by with approval. The Roundup beans, even though they weren't approved, I know that they existed in the fields the year before they were actually commercially available, because we always used Roundup to kill the weeds around the elevator. And the year before they were commercially available for seed, we couldn't kill the damn beans anymore with Roundup, all right? So they were actually in the stream the whole time, somehow, in some way. And it just comes down to a point when somebody actually tests. Does it really make any difference health-wise or anything else? No, probably not. Probably doesn't. Probably really doesn't. But once somebody passes a law, you have to live with that law, whether you like it or not. And I am really deathly afraid in the current environment that we are seeing between organic and non-GMO and everything else that the consumer wants. We're trying to push something up the pipeline when it needs to be sucked up the pipeline by demand. And trying to push it up the pipeline doesn't necessarily work. There was a really great article this week in the Wall Street Journal about these beans and everything else. I think the guy's name was Justin Bungie with the Wall Street Journal that wrote the article. I actually sent him an email today with a copy of a Pioneer DuPont letter that I got from a Pioneer seed salesman, that Pioneer is willing to exchange all those beans today, okay, for different beans. Now, whether you can get the what you really want for beans is a whole different issue. I don't know. But my suggestion on that today would be to exchange the beans, because I really don't want to handle them, because there's no way I have enough trouble segregating non-GMO beans and what regular beans, that to try to segregate another bean, I'd have to tell the guy to keep it on his farm. I can't take bins for it, okay? And then you would probably have to get them tested or whatever before you can't take them to Decatur unless something changes. And as soon as the EU changes, Decatur will change too. But when that happens, I don't know. But the regulatory process is so much different than it was 15 or 20 years ago. It takes a lot longer to get anything pushed through. And we're going to run into this more often as we go forward, because the life expectancy of the genetically modified traits is not as long in years as it used to be. So they're going to have to keep bringing new things up the stream to make it work. But it's going to be harder and harder to get all this stuff passed as we go forward. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to see as we move forward. Okay, we're going to have other things that we're going to run in the same condition with. Well, this is a great idea. I agree with the idea, but you have to get approval into places for it to move there. And as long as those approvals don't exist, I have real trouble in handling it, because I don't know where I can sell it and what the freight would be, the freight differential would be to move it to one of those markets. It might have to go by truck to some place in Tennessee to be ground up and fed to animals. Well, that really changes the basis level, and you don't even know what you're dealing with at that point.
I think the dicamba beans are a lot different than the Duracade corn also. You guys can go buy dicamba beans today. You don't have to tell that you're going to promise to segregate those beans in any different market. You can buy those beans. You can take those beans wherever you want. The Duracade corn, you're going to sign a contract that says you're going to channel that into a proper market. I personally think that, just like Randy, there'll be a market for the dicamba beans. I don't have any doubt there'll be a market for them. I put out to our customers a month or so ago, I think somebody will take advantage of it. They're approved in China. That's the biggest demand for beans that we have in the United States. Somebody will buy those beans. They're going to see to it that they get to China, but they're going to take advantage of the farmer and the grain industry if that's what happens. So I guess I would tell you, if you have them and you haven't planted them, I wouldn't plant them, period. I think even if you put them on your farm, you're probably going to get discounted. They're probably going to have to go into an alternative market unless they get approved. I don't know if they're going to get approved, but there'll probably be a place to sell them. It's a problem for us at the elevator. We set our elevators up for speed and space. So if we come out and we want to test every one of y'all's truckloads this fall, I don't know what the test will cost. Non-GMO test, $5 a load. So if we at our elevator, we handled a little over 3 million beans. So that's 3,000 loads. That's $15,000 just to buy the test, plus the labor and expense that's involved. I mean, quite honestly, we don't want to do that. We can't afford to do that. We can't keep things streamlined for you if that's what happens. I'm not against the technology either. I think it's great. I mean, I think back to 2005 to today, and what we've seen happen to these crops with as the genetically modified has been introduced, especially into corn and soybeans, it's made a hell of a difference. But they're put, I mean, in my opinion, the seed companies are putting the grain companies in the middle of it. And like I said, our facilities are set up to handle grain for speed and space. That's what you guys needed. That's what we set up to do. And it's causing a problem. I have a cousin that's in the seed industry. I'm not going to name the company. I can tell you that they're going to put them out there in plots. If they're not approved by August 1, they're mowing them down. They're not going to be harvested. So the seed industry, at least one company, is very concerned about this, if they're going to mow them down. So
Well, I think the seed industry has shown, well, at least Pioneer, because of the letter I saw today, has shown complete concern over the issue, and they're trying to handle it properly.
Yeah.
All right. So.
But what are they gonna do with all this production you got lined up? They're raising a lot, I can't believe you see.
I think they're in a really bad place. I mean, and my number one hope is that before September 1st, they get all the necessary approvals and this is a moot point. But do you want to bet on that with?
I mean, all these farmers that are raising for seed, when they cut those beans, I mean, are they gonna absolutely tear every piece of machinery down to move on to their non-dry canvas beans?
yeah,
That's where you're gonna get your
yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be like it was in the last few years when they've raised them, where they've, I don't know, at one time they had to use special combines, right, to harvest them?
They had to be blown out completely.
Yep. It's not going to be like that this year.
That's not gonna happen now.
Yeah. And there is so much more concern. I mean, you guys will agree with this. There's so much more concern over the food. I mean, to be honest with you, it's my opinion that we don't need that press. As producers, as stewards of the land, we don't need that press. And I realize that all of us in the room can do the right thing, and we can have a neighbor that does the wrong thing, and it screws things up. But we really don't need that press. There's enough pushback on this non-GMO thing anymore, or this GMO thing, that we all need as producers. We don't want to screw it up.
What's the main communication problem between elevator manager and his clientele? What needs to be changed? What needs to be improved? What are those problems that really cause you guys to pull the remaining parts of your hair out? I've already gone through all that. You'd have to say that still.
You know, for me, I think we all pride ourselves in trying to do the best we can to communicate with our customers. But we have, all of us, anybody in business, have customers across quite a spectrum of experience and age and information, and how do you talk to everybody one-on-one, but that's almost what you need, I mean, because some people, they have their phones, they're dialed in, they understand markets and reports and options and futures, and they know stuff before I do. And I've got a lot of information we pay money for. And other people need more, probably more general information, and so some people want to only communicate by text and emails, and I'm old enough, I'm still kind of a phone guy. I mean, if I have my druthers, I like to talk to people and get feedback and hear the inflection in your voice, but I don't have time to do that all the time. And so I guess that's my biggest challenge, is how to reach our customers and kind of tailor the delivery and the message to what, you know, different people need. You guys have any ideas on, I'm looking for suggestions on how to do better with that, or what?
Long time ago, they used to use, they'd call into the elevator to get the markets at night.
Yep.
And, you know, now they just get on the phone and look to see, and that's about the only thing you can do is put it on with your markets, makes it available to them.
Yeah.
You know, what we've done, what we found ourselves doing here through technology is we've divorced ourselves from having face-to-face contact anymore, all right? And in doing so, we've kind of killed our reputation in the business of being the neighbor, the friend, and everything else. We make a tape that plays if they call in at night. We send an email out every afternoon. We have a website that gets updated every day at the end of the day. We text message bids out to people every so many hours, you know, depending on what you want them, how often you want them. We are so trying to push information out to you, and to me, it feels like a one-way street. I'm pushing information out. I can send out an email, and I can send it out to 155 people. I might have 2 people say, well, that was nice, or that was good information. 2 people out of 155. I know all the email addresses are good, too. Like what Randy said, how do we get you to talk to us, too? To tell us what you really, really want, all right? Because I have people that like to use text. I'm not going to trade grain over a text or an email, all right? If you're going to sell me 10,000 bushel of corn, you better call me. Don't send me a text. You don't know where it came from. You don't know who sent it. If the wife wants some money and they're in the middle of a divorce, I don't need to go down that road, all right? I need to hear a voice when we start doing real business on the other end. But like Randy said, I would like to hear back from people too. I remember one time years ago, gosh, this has got to be 15 years ago or longer than that now, but I sent out, we were having some meetings with some farmers about some stuff, and I sent out a whole big thing about what you would like to see and what would you like changed and everything else. And with postcards to return about this and that. Well, I got it all back, and lo and behold, 99.5% of the people never wanted to change anything. I took it all in the wastebasket and threw it away because that wasn't going to work. We got to change. And we still have to change, but keeping up with the technology is a real issue. I would like to see more two-way communication through email and text if somebody sees something. Because if somebody, like I had a guy text me, he wanted to sell 30,000 corn. Well, he sent me a text, I got it. I called him right away to see, you know, because I couldn't guarantee what the price was or anything, see? So we had to have that talk between us. So, question?
Well, I was just going to make the statement, take some risk that others don't agree, but there is real value in that real-time information, even though we're not giving you feedback. There's times we're too busy to make a phone call. We're more worried about making sure we're getting the crop in the ground, but we can pull that thing up and look. So I'm just going to say we appreciate that value. It is there. We probably don't say it enough, but there's times when it's just, you don't have time to make a 2-minute phone call, but you can 10-second look at the market and say,
I had somebody tell me the other day, well, you know, markets are, you know, it's going to be a little crazy, a little slower here because the farmers are busy in the field and they're not going to be able to call you up and sell something or whatever. And I said, well, what makes you think that? I said, yeah, they're in the tractor. They got a cell phone. I said, it's GPS running. They can talk on the phone. They ain't steering it even. They can check the markets and call us and hang up before they have to turn at the end. Oh, didn't think of that. Yeah, so
But being able to do those point checks, I mean, if it gets to that point, we'll make a call.
Yeah.
But being able to get that information quickly and readily is valuable.
Yeah, there's one thing that, I don't see enough people doing is they'll call up the day after the day, 5 hours after the market goes down. And I'm a firm believer in, if you have numbers in mind, you need to have offers laying with us so we know it, all right? Because if you're just going to watch it and think you want to sell $10 beans for fall delivery, today is the typical example of that. If we didn't have the offer laying in front of us, you didn't get them today.
I think that technology helps people understand they need to start doing that, because if they didn't call you, they didn't know the market hit that day. When you look at your phone, and say, oh, I didn't get a call right now, don't do it, and you get burned about 5 times, then you start saying, okay, I need another option, like put an offer.
Yeah.
So I think that more information will help us change our behavior. That's my thoughts.
I mean, the technology, the communication, I think it's been overall good. We don't get a lot of feedback on it. I mean, I can tell you that, at least in my case, I'm kind of technologically challenged for many of you that know me. It's creating, I don't want to say more work, but more distractions during the day. I don't know, I probably get 50 text messages a day and 200 emails a day, and how many ever phone calls, so you're constantly looking at your phone and your email. So there's a lot more distractions. I started with Jerry 26 years ago in this business, and at this time of the year, quite honestly, I probably learned the grain business during the spring of 1990, and now it's not like that in our elevator. So there is a lot more communication, probably. It's just not as personalized, or that's what I see. And it's more of a challenge, actually, for me anyways. It's more of a challenge for me to send something back out to you. I'm kind of the same way. I may have an email here and a phone call there and a text message there, and it becomes more of a challenge for me. But
Well, and I have, you have to prioritize. So my priority is, if you're sitting in my office, you take priority over the phone. If you call on the phone, you take priority over an email. Email and text, about equal. And I'll try to answer all of them as promptly as I can, but if you're sitting in my office, I am not going to ignore you to answer an email. And if I'm talking to you on the phone, I'm not going to hang up the phone. A little bit varies about the subject, because if we're talking about the Cards and the Cubs and somebody emails me from one of my locations and said somebody got a hand hurt or something, well, we'll probably quit talking about the Cards and Cubs. But if we're doing business, I guess, is qualify that. And the one thing that I do miss from the good old days, and I enjoy the technology and I enjoy the chance to hit a lot of people with information. At one time, we all had these market quote systems in the elevator, and hardly anybody had them on the farm. And people used to, when they were getting ready to sell grain, they'd be in checking that once a day, 3 times a day. But then I knew they were close to some kind of decision point, so if something occurred, I could call them. Now, people check it 50 times a day on their phone, or sitting in their underwear at 11 o'clock at night looking at the computer, and a lot of times you never know, and so anything you can do to help us know your state of mind, I would welcome. That way, I'm thinking about selling grain, or if it get, like you have an offer laying in front of you. Those are some of the things that I look for, and I value every customer, and I value people that aren't customers as friends too. And there are a few I don't value, but I try to keep that to a minimum.
we have, we've heard these guys say they want to hear from you. Let's kind of turn it around a little bit. What do you want to ask these guys about what they do, what they feel? What sort of questions do you have about their operations, how they do things that's going to make it easier for you to comply with what they've asked you to do?
What did we ask them to do?
Talk to you.
Oh, okay.
Is there a big advantage for you guys to sell large quantities of grain, so get extra dollars? Would that help? Or have you guys done that where you know, tell your farmers, hey, put a pool together, you'll set some prices, or set a level, or, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Set a goal, let your dog guys all at once, maybe we can get you an extra couple of cents. Does that work at all?
I think that it's a function of the marketplace at the time, but you can sell 200, 300,000 bushel of corn at a time and maybe get a 2-cent push sometimes. Sometimes you can get a 5-cent push, you know, depending on how hungry the marketplace is. If you're trying to put together 50,000 bushels, it really doesn't make much difference. I will say that when somebody gives us offers, okay, and I got lots of $10 bean offers, all right, I'll shave that to make sure I get it, all right. I'll shave a penny or something off of them to try to make sure I get them all booked, all right. But, you know, I had a guy the other day wanted to sell 38,000 bushel of corn, and he was looking for a 7-cent push. And I said, well, it ain't going to happen because I just sold him $250,000 and I got 2. All right? So it depends on timing in the marketplace, how hungry they are, too. But you're going to run into issues when you start talking to farmers trying to repackage stuff to put it together, okay? Everybody doesn't agree with everybody else. You know, I hate round offers. I hate $10 round offers. I'd rather have a $9.99 than a $10. Okay. A penny probably doesn't make much difference, but sometimes it's a hell of a lot easier to hit. Okay.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I trade a lot of stuff, $500,000 to $1 million at a time, and it might be worth a couple cents, you know. And it's going to be hard to get those big lots put together from a farmer at a specific flat price. Now, I've sold stuff at better pushes before, but it's not that simple. I mean, it's not. You can we're all 3 co-ops, so you can look at our financial statements and you can see we're not exactly getting rich trading it either. So we're taking thin margins and trying to merchandise and come up with something that's acceptable to operate our elevators. But there's not a huge push out there in the wholesale type market.
It depends on when it is, though, really. But you know, you asked a question about bushels, and does it really make any difference? I called one company today, and I said, look, if you can pay this, which would have been a 2-cent push from what he offered me, I got 200,000 or 300,000. Oh, okay. All right. So you got any more? I said, well, if I go buy back June, July trains, I can give you 1.1 million. Oh, I don't need that much. All right. I just told him the wrong number. Now he don't want, you know, he doesn't want it that bad. But I could have laid my hands on 1.1 million today by buying trains back. If he really wanted to push. Don't want it that bad. Okay.
What, this club is really intended to educate farmers on how to get better. I mean, from you guys' perspective, what should we try to get educated on in order to be able to work better with the elevator? What is that? Any idea?
If I know what you're thinking, what you're wanting, I'll try to provide it to you. That sounds, but I mean, if I'm if Dwayne is one of my customers and I know he's not one to sell it at a loss, I probably won't call him until it's profit. You know, and that's, if I do, it's just a waste of his time and mine to be talking. And somebody else maybe is up to here in debt and they're worried about being able to go next year. They might be more agreeable to doing something that Dwayne wouldn't, you know, and I don't try to pass judgments. I mean, I just try to get it. So I don't know, that's kind of a generic answer, but.
Well, I just didn't know if you each see consistently a lack of education on our part in this area, that we could use this club to try to train and educate people on, for something that maybe stood out.
You know, there's a limited amount of, I was shocked when you've been having this club for so long, and Kent's got the rudimentary basis higher or lower. I was like, oh, they haven't gone by that yet? All right.
Well, we really haven't, we haven't done much training, we've done more market talk.
Yeah.
This is just the new approach.
Yeah, you know, and what we do in markets is totally different than what you have to do as farmers, because we work off of a margin and we trade basis. Okay, we don't care if the corn's $7 or $4 as long as we can get a margin out of it and trade the basis. You have to sell corn at a high price, so we have to predict a price. You're talking to three people here who are what we have termed in our industry as perma-bears. Elevator managers by nature are bearish, all right? We have issues, and I can tell you when somebody comes into my office and sits down, I can tell by the body language, he's got to sell grain today, he needs money. Okay? You can tell by the body language. If you want to do something that's really useful, is you sit down with somebody you trust that manages the elevator that you deal with, and you kind of bare your soul as to where you are. And I'll be damned if I won't try to help you do better, and where I can help you and tell you where maybe you should be putting some numbers in. Okay? Kevin's the same way. I'm sure Randy is too. We are not who we are running cooperative elevators if our farmers go broke. We're only in this for, if you guys need to be successful too. We got to have you as successful for us to be successful. That's the most important thing out here. And we're willing to spend the time with you and go over numbers with you, you know. As far as asking us what the market is going to do, I know for a fact when you walk in the door and ask me, you want me to tell you the market's going higher. All right? That's a foregone conclusion. You don't even need to ask the damn question. I was managing the elevator in Mount Pulaski probably 31 years ago. Answered the phone. Phone rings, answered the phone. Lady on the phone. I answered it, you know, Farmer's Grain, whatever the name of the company was then. That's all I said. She said hello, and then I heard her husband yell in the background, ask him what the market's going to do. She yells back at him. Well, he doesn't know that. He yells back at her. Honest to God, this is true. He yells back at her, well, he ought to, he's in the business. She yells back at him, well, even if he did know, what makes you think he'd tell us? I just said hello, you know. But this was a wonderful thing, you know. We don't know what it's going to be doing. We can give you a best idea to try to manage your money and try to lock you into some profits, and Kent can try to leave you with some upside in something. Kevin's better at merchandising for farmers with puts and calls than I am, because I never use them because I think they cost too much money. All right? Because they don't work for the elevator. They can work for a farmer, but they don't work for an elevator, in my opinion. But I
guess what I was getting at, I think we know that you guys will sit down with us and have that conversation. I mean, because we've been there. But if we use this club to help assist that, because you have 500 emails a day and
Mhm.
text and phone calls, and you can't do that for everybody. This is an extension to try to make this relationship better and to help educate farmers to do a better job of that and make that more efficient. So we're just trying to understand how we can use this to help with that. So if
Well,
you don't have it, maybe you can just send an email or something later if you think of something.
I think, for me, the people that I like to visit with the most are the people that are engaged a little bit all the time. And with the technology today, it's pretty easy to get just a summation of what the markets did today, because I think the market operates on a continuum, and I don't think you can read the market comments on one day and make decisions based off that. But if you do it 250, we got 250, 260 business days a year. If you do it 230, 240 days a year, well, they were saying this day, and then they're saying this, you get a better, I guess, feeling or sense of the buzz in the market. You can kind of say, I agree with that, or I'm going to throw the bullshit flag on that, The other thing is, I guess I would encourage people to look for trigger points or points where they will sell and how much. And like Jerry said, if I do talk about the markets, usually I only talk about the bear side because I don't have to tell everybody what can happen to make it go up. But how likely is that? I guess one thing happened today that was concerning to me is we had a key reversal in soybeans. And with all this outside money that's been coming in, and I think a lot of it trades on charts, is that key reversal, is that a point that you need to recognize, you need to be concerned about? And we've had pretty good run up. We've gotten profitable levels. I would probably say that should deserve some serious consideration.
Yeah, but only in soybeans.
What?
But only in soybeans.
Right. So how long do you ride it? When do you pitch? Another thing I watch sometimes is moving price averages. So if we're going up, the short term, the 5 day is ahead of the 20 day, 20 days ahead of the 50 day, 50 days ahead of the 100. But then when it starts to turn, when all those different prices start to cross each other on the way down, I know the funds they watch a lot more than that, and the technical traders watch a lot more than that. But I think that can be an indicator. I'm not saying that when the first time that 20 day crosses the 50 that you sell everything, but I think it's something that is just something you might want to keep track of, because I think nobody knows when the top is until after it's over. And so I think that you just maybe need to identify some trigger points yourself, or some price levels that you think will allow you to be profitable. And
and I think it's real important for you to look out to see when you know you got money that you need. All right? And when you can find profitable levels to sell something to cover some of those money needs. Because I see too many people come in the day they got to have money. Tax day, whenever, all right? They got to have money today. You need to be looking forward into some of that stuff sometimes. Now, right now, the market's not giving you any chance on to sell corn when you might need money for fall, but it is giving you a chance to sell beans. Okay. Oh.
I got it. I think the one.
Who invited you? Hi, Sharon.
One conversation we haven't had here is that, we make a lot, as farmers, we make a lot of plans. We plan on what kind of herbicides, what kind of pesticides, what kind of seed. We get all into that. But what we don't plan is where we want to sell grain, how we have to make a profit. And somewhere in that process of buying seed and chemicals, that plan needs to watch basis, watch 3DP. There are a lot of components that come into this that we don't really plan for. It's like Jerry said, we got to pay our taxes. You know, and that's the only plan that we've made. Now it might be too late to cover that efficiently. So I think the beginning should have started a long time before that.
And I think, you know, pricing grain is an emotional thing. We all get married to it. I've told many, many people, you got to make financial decisions and not emotional ones. The last 4 weeks have been a prime example of that. I had people starting to sell beans at $9, and then they sold them at $9.20, and they sold them at $9.40. They sold them at $9.60. They sold them again at $9.80, and they've sold them at $10. And I talked to a guy on the phone today, and now he's got 60% of his crop sold, but he sold a bunch of it way too cheap. But if it was over his profit margin, that's what you got to know. You got to know where do I need to be. You got to make financial decisions. And I told that fellow on the phone today. So you got 60% of your crop sold, and they're $10. What have you done with the other 40%? We get focused on what we sold too cheap. We forget about the 40% we still got left to sell. I've done nothing. You can go buy $10 puts for 50 cents today. That's $9.50 bean futures. If you'd have talked to me 5 weeks ago, and by the way, I don't know where in the hell the market's going, but I'd have told you there's probably no way in hell without a crop problem that we're going to take November beans above $9.50. I'd have said it, I'll admit it. I'd have been damn wrong. Now we can protect it. That's our minimum price. That's what I think, that's just my opinion, but I think the producer does a poor job of that. So if we could turn that around, and if it was my job, and I can guarantee that I'm going to make $60,000 a year next year by buying this put option, but I could make $200, you buy the put option. That's my opinion. I'm sorry to get on my soapbox, but I've fought these options for a long, long, long time. And I've fought a lot of farmers on hedges that are short the market today, that wrote it up, whatever Kent said, $1, and now they're convinced they're wrong. They want out. God dang it, you're not wrong, but we're focused on the 25% that we sold too damn cheap, and we forgot about the 75% that we still got to do something with. That's the biggest problem. Then you can take it to the level. Now we identified the flat price. If you want to become a merchant, there's no reason any of you in the room can't do that. You know, if you want to push your futures out to the deferreds because you don't need money needs, because basis is too wide, I'll be happy to teach any of you that. But that's my opinion. I'm sorry for getting on my soapbox, but that's the thing we forget. We forget. We get focused on what we sold too cheap, and we screw up the rest of it. And right now, we can go buy those $10 puts. Your crop crop insurance, your price is $8.86, and we can guarantee $9.50 beans. For God's sakes, that's what, 64 cents above where your crop insurance is guaranteeing you. So 64 cents times whatever your APH is, that's real money. We shouldn't let the market take it away from us. I don't care if beans go to $15. We got that 40% that we don't have priced. Sure, we sold this 60% at $9.50 average, so be it. We made financial decisions. If you go in and talk to your banker and you tell him, hey, this is what I did. I sold 60% of my crop at $9.50. It was above my break even. I got 40% left. I own $9 or $10 puts. The market's at $15. I rolled them up. I spent $1 to get the $15. You're still at $14.
Kevin just brought up a very valid point with the bankers, all right? And a function that we can do, or Kent can do, or somebody that you're doing your options with or whatever can do, is actually take the time to sit down with your banker and you at the same time to explain what the hell's really going on, because there's too many bankers out here who don't understand how to handle a hedge account or how to handle an options account, okay? And that's a function that we can serve, okay? Because we really, that's what we do. Yeah, somebody said, well, I got to make margin calls. Yeah, well, the first thing I do every morning is check each 3 margin accounts and see who gets to wire money to who. You know, I get wire there. Yeah, that's what I do. But it's just what we're used to doing. When you do the options, you don't have to worry about that. You pay so much money not to have to do that. So.
One thing from the farmer's perspective, there is still a variable that's out there. We can figure our cost of production based on our average yield or APH or whatever, but we don't know what that yield is. And so there's a certain, with the insurance and whatever, there's a certain amount we can protect, but also our break even changes based on that yield. So there's still a variable out there that's
Oh, yeah. No doubt. But if you're leveraging, if you're in this example I just told you about today, if you're leveraging, if you got 60% of your crop sold flat cash right now, and you've got 85% crop insurance, you still got 25% of your crop insurance at your APH that you can leverage. So you could get short 85% of your crop, and you're essentially going to be protected even if you have a poor crop. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Then you've got 15% of your crop, or depending on what crop insurance level you're taking, you got 15% of your crop that's not insured at all. You got no price protection on that at all. If you use put options, there's no delivery tied to that put option. So we spent 50 cents on a $10 put. I don't want to see any one of you in the room lose 50 cents a bushel. I don't. But if you spend 50 cents a bushel and you don't have those bushels on that last 15% or whatever you're comfortable with, that's all you're out. Beans go to $18, you're getting $17.50. That's why I'm a big proponent of the puts. I know a lot of people don't like them. I'm a huge proponent of options with farmers because it's just exactly what I said. It's hard to stay with those hedges. And I said 2 Mondays ago when I walked into the office and the market was up, and I'm not saying this is what's going on today, but I personally think we're getting fed a lot of malarkey about what's going on out here in the world. And the funds have been huge buyers of this market in the last 2 weeks. And I'm not saying they won't for the next 20 weeks. I don't know. But in 2008, I helped a lot of farmers manage through 2008. And corn started out in December around $4. And I can tell you this for sure because I was with my wife and we had went to Missouri, and on July the 7th of 2008, the market broke. And I had a lot of people long $7 December corn puts that we started out at $4. And they were long $7 corn puts. And guess what December corn did in 2008? It went below $3. So if you get into a market that's going to go crazy, and I'm not saying this is it, but to me, and I don't want to get into a big long spiel, but to me, with the carryouts that we have in the marketplace, I don't think this market makes sense. And I think you can look at the structures of the futures market without me going into a big spiel about why I think the markets may have more upside, but there may be more to come. And so you want to be careful.
I tell you, I think one thing that's really kind of scary in this corn market. China's got all this corn that's been carrying for 10 years. What if in the middle of the night they decide they're going to put it on the open market? Think what that do.
Well,
they're going to get rid of it.
it's coming. It's starting to come on the market.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of it.
And the quality is such that they have to make ethanol out of it, but they'll still have some DDGs. But they got real quality issues with the corn that they got, but they got so damn much of it, it's unbelievable. So.
I think just a few general statements. People ask me for some advice. The first thing I say, you really need to plan to market the same size crop you plan to harvest. And I ran the elevator in Niantic for quite a while, and I'll never forget, it was within 2 minutes. I was talking to one of my customers, I said, boy, it's a pretty good price for fall corn, you know. He said, I can't sell any. I might not raise it. Then he said, I just got back from Sloan's. I traded for a big new auger wagon and a bigger combine. And I was like, well, if you're not going to raise it, why do you need that combine? You know, so people, it's easy to believe what you want to believe. When you're thinking about harvesting, you want to believe you got a big crop. When you think about selling, maybe not so much. So I'm not saying that to be critical. Just kind of try to make your plans consistent.
You know, we deal with all kinds of people, and human nature is a fickle animal when you start dealing with people, because I had a landlady that she might have only had 300 bushel of soybeans. Okay, not very many beans, but she started calling every day about 2 o'clock. And what'd the market do today? Oh, okay, thank you. Hang up. About the third day she did this, and I think I took the call 3 days in a row. She said, what'd the market do today? And I said it did this. And she said, oh, finally she said, well, what do you think I should do? And I said, you know, if you sold them and had the money, you wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. She says, oh, God, thank you. Send me a check. Yeah. It was that simple, all right? She just wanted somebody to push her over the edge, so because it was driving her nuts. So, anyway.
We are beyond our appointed closing time, but don't want to cut off a great conversation. I think we've had a pretty good interchange here tonight. Any final quick questions for these guys? Any summation that you want to put an exclamation point behind?
I got one other general piece of advice. And if people ask me, I'm offering this now without being asked, but I generally tell people to cut up or break up your crop and your marketing into smaller pieces, because it's easy to make decisions. It's easier to make decisions with a little bit than it is. If you're going to sell half your crop, you can't possibly let that go till you hit the absolute top of the market. But if you're selling 5% of your crop, maybe you can sell that when it's profitable. Maybe you can sell another 5% or 10% or 20%, you know, everybody has their own things, but I kind of call that batting for average. And in the baseball world, if you strike out all year but you hit a grand slam in the bottom of the 7th game of the World Series, you're famous for a while, but the guy that hits 330 all his whole career is probably going to come out ahead. And so that's, for what that's worth, just some things to think about. Take them as they fit you or don't. I don't mean it as anything other than just some, like Jerry talks about, observations of human nature.
I told a young guy one time that was starting farming, I said, look, make a goal, an assumption like this. I said, I know you need money at certain times. When you know you can sell something at a profitable level, make sure you have something on the book to cash in when you know those bills are coming. I see too many people get caught with a down market, tax time, whenever, and they got to sell something for cash that day. I see that too much in our industry. I told a young guy that was starting farming one time, I said, well, let me give you a rule of thumb. I said, sell a third of it sometime during the summer, June, July, during a crop rally that usually happens in May or June, something like that, for fall delivery. Take a look at the price at harvest time. If the price is higher than where you sold it before, sell a third of it across the scales and store a third to hang on to it, something like that, okay? That was just very rudimentary, simple advice, but he was starting out and he needed a lot of cash flows up front. It all depends on where your cash flow needs are. Don't get upset when you sell 2,000 bushel of corn and the market goes up the next day. I had a guy sold 2,000 one day, came in the next day, got the check, the market was 2 cents higher. True story. He comes in and he was swearing because he sold I says, you got 18,000 more. You been happy if the son of a bitch would have went down? Yeah. That's what And you wonder why we get surly at times? After 38 years of doing this and you get the same question, you know, you already know what the answer is, you know what the question was when you walked in the door. So, anyway. But we're more than willing to sit down with you. I've sat down with several different people, and I think I've sat down with some people that I know had some financial issues and said, okay, let's lay it out on the table. Let's see what you got to have to make this work, okay? And you keep that to yourself. You know, you have to the person has to understand that they can trust you to bare their soul to you, because you might be one of their last best hopes to punch it out through, okay? And don't be afraid to have us talk to your banker either. If you're trying to do something that makes sense from a grain merchandising standpoint, don't be afraid to have us call your banker and arrange a meeting to talk to him. That's part of what we're here for, okay? We're not successful unless you are successful too, okay?
Let's give, these guys are our customers. Let's give them.